Welcome to this explainer. We're diving straight into the puzzle of English word order today. If you've ever felt like your sentences sound just a little bit off but you can't quite figure out why, you're in the right place. We're going to take these rigid, sometimes confusing academic rules and transform them into a highly practical survival guide for fluent sentence structure.
Since English grammar can feel a bit overwhelming, we're going to tackle 6 specific traps step by step. We'll look at the verb-object bond, placing place before time, positioning mid-sentenced adverbs, navigating still, yet, and anymore, choosing between although and in spite of, and finally, mastering even, like, and as.
All right, Section 1, the verb-object bond. This is our absolute foundational bedrock rule. In English, a verb and its direct object are basically like magnets. They absolutely have to stick together. You should never wedge other words, like the phrase very much, between the verb like and the object animals. Saying, I like very much animals just disrupts that natural flow. It feels really clunky. But saying, I like animals very much keeps that magnetic bond perfectly intact.
The exact same rule applies to other interrupters, too. Take the verb lost and the object jewelry. They really can't be awkwardly separated by the word also. Saying, I lost also my jewelry completely breaks that bond. Instead, you just pop also before the verb, giving us the much smoother sentence, I also lost my jewelry. Just mastering this single rule is going to make your English sound infinitely more natural.
Moving right along to Section 2, always place before time. This rule is going to completely change how you organize the context of your everyday sentences. The crucial takeaway here is that the physical location, the where, almost always needs to be mentioned before the time or frequency, the when. Take Huma, for instance. Her destination, to work, is the place. Every morning is the frequency. So we don't say Huma walks every morning to work, we say Huma walks to work every morning. Always place first, time second. Okay, let's test this out. Take a second and try to mentally correct this sentence based on the rule we just covered. I'm going on Monday to Sibi. Think about the place and think about the time. If you guessed that Sibi, which is the place, needs to come before on Monday, which is the time, you nailed it. It should be, I'm going to Sibi on Monday. Consciously putting the location before the time is one of the easiest ways to avoid a super common phrasing trap. Now that our foundation is set, let's jump into Section 3, positioning mid-sentence adverbs. We're talking about those pesky tricksters like always, also, and probably. So there's a really clear pattern here for two-part verbs. Sometimes a verb isn't just a single word, right? It's a helping verb plus a main verb, like can remember or has been stolen. So where exactly do you put an adverb like never or probably? Right in the middle. The adverb always sits directly after the first part of that verb. It's not I never can remember, it's I can never remember. You wouldn't say your bike probably has been stolen, you'd say your bike has probably been stolen. Just split the two-part verb right down the middle.
But of course, there is a golden exception when we're dealing with negative sentences. When you have a negative word like won't or doesn't, the adverb probably actually has to jump before the negative word. So saying he won't probably meet you is a no-go. You have to say he probably won't see you. Think of probably as acting like a little shield right before the negative won't.
All right, Section 4, still, yet, and anymore. These 3 are constantly mixed up, but their rules are actually beautifully systematic. Think of these words as having assigned seats in a sentence. Yet is basically the passenger in the back. It usually goes at the very end of a sentence, especially when we're waiting for something to happen, like, has the typist arrived yet? Still, on the other hand, sits right in the middle to show an action is actively continuing, like Sarah is still working. Now here's where you can use grammar to totally shift the emotion of what you're saying. If you swap yet out and force still into a negative sentence, you completely change the nuance. Saying she hasn't called me yet is polite. You're just waiting. But saying she still hasn't called me injects a really strong feeling of impatience. It implies the action absolutely should have happened by now. It is fascinating how one tiny word order shift changes your entire mood.
And what about when a situation has changed and is totally finished? Notice how any more and any longer take that back seat. They sit right at the end of the sentence. We aren't friends anymore. But if you want to use no longer, it jumps to the middle. We are no longer friends. Oh, and a massive tip here, using no more to describe a changed state, like saying he is no more our employee, is just a grammar myth. We need to avoid it completely. Stick to not our employee anymore or no longer our employee.
Next up is Section 5,
Although versus in spite of. Let's untangle some of the most frequently confused transition words that show contrast.
People mix these up all the time. The meaning is exactly the same for both, but the structural formula is what changes. Although must be followed by a full mini-sentence, a subject and a verb. Although it was raining. But in spite of takes a shortcut. It's just followed by a simple noun, like the rain, or an ing word, like working. So you'd say in spite of the rain, but never in spite of it was raining. And right here is a massive trap you absolutely have to avoid to sound truly fluent. The phrase in spite loves the word of. They're a package deal. But the word despite is a total loner. It never takes of. Saying despite of is completely unacceptable in English grammar. It is simply despite the fact or despite the rain. Drop the of when you use despite and you'll immediately sound like a pro.
Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Mastering Even, Like, and As. These highly nuanced little words act as the final boss in our Confident Fluency Survival Guide.
The word even is basically your secret weapon for expressing shock or surprise. Using even introduces an element of the unusual. Imagine pointing out that someone just climbed 10 flights of stairs and isn't even out of breath. By adding that one single word, you're not just stating a fact. You're conveying absolute amazement to whoever is listening. Notice how even pairs with comparisons, too. When you use it to compare two things, it always holds hands with the comparative form, not the ist superlative form. And it definitely doesn't use more if the word is short. Saying today is even more hot is a classic mistake. The correct punchy phrasing is, today is even hotter. Yesterday was cold, today is even colder. And finally, we have the age-old battle between like and as. Here is your unbreakable rule for this one. When comparing nouns or pronouns without a verb right after them, we use like. So, she is a teacher like me. You wouldn't say as me. However, as is used right before a full subject and verb, like do as you are told, or when it actually means because, as in, as I was feeling tired, I went to bed. So just keep like for simple nouns and as for actions and reasons.
We have covered a lot of ground today, unmasking the secret structures behind perfectly ordered English sentences. So I'll leave you with this to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Are you still feeling intimidated, or are you ready to confidently conquer these grammar traps today? Take these golden rules. Bond your verbs and objects, put your place before your time, and carefully seat your adverbs. Avoid those common pitfalls and step confidently into your daily fluency. You've absolutely got this.